The committee room fell silent as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stood up, her voice cutting through the political theater like a knife. What happened next would leave committee veteran Jim Jordan completely speechless and expose his legal ignorance before millions of Americans watching live. "Mr. Jordan," Crockett began, her Texas drawl steady and confident. "Since you keep talking about constitutional law, let me ask you one simple question that any first-year law student should know." Jordan leaned back in his chair, his usual aggressive smirk plastered across his face. He had no idea what was coming. The cameras captured every second as Crockett prepared to deliver a legal education that would demolish Jordan's credibility and go viral within minutes. Before we dive into this incredible showdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of these epic political moments. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this plays out. The tension in the room was electric. Jordan, known for his combative style and loud interruptions, thought he was dealing with just another freshman congresswoman. He was about to learn the hard way that Jasmine Crockett came armed with something he clearly lacked: actual legal knowledge. To understand why this moment was so devastating, you need to know who these two players really are. The contrast couldn't be more striking. Jasmine Crockett represents everything Jordan fears about the new generation of politicians. At 42, she's a former public defender and civil rights attorney who actually practiced law before entering politics. She graduated from law school, passed the bar exam, and spent years in courtrooms defending real people. Her legal credentials are solid, her knowledge is deep, and her courtroom experience taught her how to demolish opponents with facts. Crockett grew up in St. Louis, worked her way through school, and built her career fighting for justice. She knows the Constitution not because she read talking points, but because she used it every day to defend her clients. When she speaks about legal issues, she's drawing from years of actual practice, not political rhetoric. Jim Jordan, on the other hand, represents the old guard of political theater over substance. While he loves to play the role of a constitutional expert on television, his actual legal background tells a different story. Jordan has a master's degree in education and worked as a wrestling coach before entering politics. He never attended law school, never passed a bar exam, and never practiced law. Yet Jordan has built his entire political brand around aggressive questioning and claims of constitutional expertise. He interrupts witnesses, pounds tables, and shouts about the Constitution without actually understanding the legal principles he claims to defend. His style is all about performance, not substance. The stakes couldn't be higher. This committee hearing was being broadcast live, with millions watching. Jordan had spent months positioning himself as the constitutional authority on the committee, using his loud voice and aggressive tactics to intimidate witnesses and score political points. But now he faced someone who actually knew the law, someone who couldn't be intimidated by his usual tricks. Crockett had come prepared to expose the difference between someone who talks about the law and someone who actually knows it. The committee room was packed with reporters, staff members, and other representatives, all sensing that something big was about to happen. Social media was already buzzing with anticipation as clips from earlier in the hearing showed Jordan's typical grandstanding performance. What nobody expected was that his entire facade was about to crumble under the weight of basic legal questions from someone who actually went to law school. The hearing had been going on for 2 hours when Jordan launched into one of his signature rants. He pounded the table and raised his voice, claiming that the Democratic majority was violating constitutional principles and ignoring fundamental legal precedents. "This is exactly the kind of constitutional crisis our founders warned us about," Jordan declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We're seeing a complete disregard for the rule of law and the principles that make this country great." Other committee members had learned to just let Jordan rant and move on. His interruptions and grandstanding had become so routine that most witnesses and representatives just waited for him to finish his performance before continuing with actual business. But Crockett wasn't having it. She had been watching Jordan's act for months, listening to him make legal claims that any competent attorney would recognize as complete nonsense. as a former public defender who had actually used constitutional law to defend clients. She was tired of watching Jordan cosplay as a legal expert. "Point of order," Crockett interrupted, her clear voice cutting through Jordan's rambling. The room immediately quieted. Interrupting Jordan during one of his rants was unusual. Most members just let him exhaust himself. "Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the gentleman from Ohio a few clarifying questions about the constitutional principles he just referenced." Jordan looked annoyed at being interrupted. "I don't yield my time," he snapped, falling back on parliamentary procedure to avoid engagement. "I'm not asking you to yield," Crockett replied smoothly. "I'm simply noting that since you've made several specific legal claims, it would be helpful for the committee to understand the basis for those claims." The committee chairman, sensing the tension, allowed Crockett to proceed. Jordan shifted, uncomfortably in his seat, clearly preferring to give speech.